1 in 7 did not survive the journey. Not a battle, not a war zone, a voyage. Across the Atlantic slave trade, historians estimate 12.5 million Africans were forced onto ships. Between 1.8 and 2 million died before reaching land. That loss alone is the equivalent of an entire modern metropolis erased at sea. No graves, no names, just numbers written in ledgers. This is the statistic history learned to live with and move on from. At the beginning, the number was 0. The ships were new or newly repaired. The sails were folded neatly. The decks were scrubbed clean. Merchants signed contracts. Investors calculated returns. Captains checked cargo capacity. On paper, nothing had gone wrong yet. In ports along the West African coast, the weather was ordinary. The ocean calm. Trade routine. No one wrote down death in the first column. Only units loaded. Before the arithmetic began, the Middle Passage lasted 6 to 10 weeks on average. Time measured not in days, but in survival. A typical slave ship carried 300 to 400 people packed below deck. Each person was given less than 1 square meter of space. Enough room to exist, not enough to live. Mortality did not arrive all at once. It accumulated. On some voyages, 5% died. On others, 20% or more. Dysentery spread first, then dehydration, then suffocation. If 1 person died per day, the ledger barely reacted. If 3 died overnight, it became noticeable. If 10 died in a week, it became a problem, but not a tragedy. A calculation. Insurance records show mortality thresholds. If deaths exceeded a certain percentage, compensation applied. Below that line, loss was absorbed. Human lives reduced to acceptable shrinkage. By the time a ship crossed the midpoint of the Atlantic, the number was no longer 0. It was expected. Consider one ship, the Zong, 1781. Over 440 Africans were loaded far beyond capacity. Water ran low. More than 130 people were thrown overboard alive. Not killed in panic, not in rage, but because insurance would pay for lost cargo at sea, not for deaths on board. Each body was an accounting decision. 1 person, 1 claim, 1 line item. Imagine a modern passenger jet, mid-flight, discarding rows of seats to protect the airline's balance sheet. That was not an exception. That was logic. For every statistic, there was a voice silenced mid-journey, a name never translated, a family that never learned what happened. Across 3 centuries, the Atlantic absorbed millions of final breaths. More people died in the Middle Passage than the population of many modern nations, capitals. Yet the trade expanded. By the late 18th century, mortality rates actually improved, not out of compassion, but efficiency. Fewer deaths meant higher profits. Survival became a business optimization. The statistic 1 in 7 inches sounds almost restrained, controlled, manageable. But imagine a city today where 1 out of every 7 people never arrives. No explanation, no memorial, just silence. This is how mass death learned to wear numbers, and how numbers learn to erase mourning. If one fraction can describe the loss of millions, what else have we learned to accept because it fits neatly into a statistic? Behind every ratio, there was a human being who did not survive the math.